Hey, do y'all remember last year when Nike allegedly was going to buy Smash Golf Club for $2 billion? We've come a long way, huh? Swing thoughts this week. Minwoo to Lululemon. Grayson has a secret, and why I can't stop thinking about Wilson Golf. All that up next. My name is Raymond. This is the Course Café podcast. Man, what a weird week. We got absolutely dunked on by Mother Nature these last 2 weeks. I don't think the temperature has been above 15, and we got absolutely wrecked by another snowfall last night. I was shoveling for snow like legit 2 hours. I live in this newer cul-de-sac area, and all my neighbors are like these old retired folks. And I was out shoveling my driveway, and next thing you know, I look up and little Sherry came pedaling out of her house. I couldn't leave her hanging, so halfway through me shoveling her yard, Bob noticed that he could cash in on some free help, so he came out, started pushing around his snow, and there was no way that I was about to watch these cats shovel snow in like 10-degree weather, I want to say it was. Heart attacks all over the place. I was not trying to have that happen. So yeah, 2 hours later, I've shoveled probably 4 or 5 houses. My upper body is absolutely trashed. And yeah, I'm over this weather situation that's going on now. I've been window shopping on Zillow from Irvine all the way down to Carlsbad, where I used to live. We'll see what happens next. But yeah, anyways, rant over. Let's talk the Minwoo. Lululemon announced that they signed Minwoo Lee as their newest ambassador. I brought Minwoo up in the last pod along with Akshay and Thagala as like these young energy guys that I think could shake things up if they continue to develop and play well on tour. These young cats can play now, and they're approaching the game a different way than we've seen over the last like 15 plus years. You could maybe argue put Brooks in that conversation too, as a guy who just isn't like your typical cookie cutter version of what we usually see on tour. But I would say it's a big win for both Lululemon and Minwoo. Like, I'll play the video for my initial thoughts after the announcement was made that I posted on Instagram. I'll let that roll. The chef himself, Minwoo, signed a deal with Lululemon. I was hyped and bummed at the same time. Lulu's a strong brand that has continued to diversify its product offering. They also have a global footprint, almost 700 retail store locations. They're a big brand that come with a healthy amount of resources. It's a perfect marriage for a young athlete like Minwoo, who arguably might be the next guy in golf. So what can we realistically expect on the golf course? Well, Jordan Clarkson might be a window into how Lulu will bring to life that partnership. Jordan signed a deal with Lulu back in 2021, and him and Min share some similarities. Both are young, fashion-forward, interesting personalities, and neither fit the mold of what you would expect from a Lulu global ambassador. Last September, Lulu and Jordan collabed on a limited training capsule, so maybe we'll see Lulu and Minwoo cook up a limited capsule for the golf course. The only reason I was bummed, I really think Minwoo is that young, fashion-forward prodigy the golf world needs. He's got a nice game and he's a really unique vibe about him that makes him an ideal athlete to steer the narrative in a more interesting direction. But I get it. Who wouldn't want to sign with Lulu? Just my thoughts. So first off, I got to start turning the volume down on some of these videos that are going up on Instagram. But like I said, those are my initial gut reactions to the actual announcement that was made earlier in the week. But I do want to expand on 2 details. The first is around what we can expect on course from Lululemon and Minwoo. So Sports Illustrated actually sat down with him and talked about like his style and what he likes. And he brought up the mock neck being a thing that he looks forward to bringing back, and that a lot of guys on tour just don't really rock that. So it's a cool way for him to be him and stand out. And secondly, like, he had a note specific to the look good, feel good, like play good motto, which that line has just become somewhat of a throwaway just because it's used by literally everybody. But the reason I bring those 2 details up, as a major fan and like heavy consumer of Lululemon, I really do wonder how much they will bend the brand to accommodate for Minwoo's like interest. Like, if you head to Lululemon on their website and tap men, there's a drop down menu that shows an activity section, and golf, for me at least, like right now in this moment, is the first activity when you click that drop down. And when you click it, you get a grid wall of like 50 something, maybe 60 products. And I don't think I would go as far as saying like lifeless, but you get like 59 products that have pretty much zero personality. You got polos, pants, socks, hats, shorts, some water bottles, vests, and some quarter zips. There's just no energy in this grid. Definitely like no let him cook energy for sure. So it's 100% like a utility decision when you shop for Lulu. Like you're getting arguably some of the best, most comfortable pieces at a pretty legit price when you really break down quality, comfort, and like options and stuff like that. So I have a few pairs of the commission pant. I wear those for like boardroom style meetings. They're super legit. I also they have like my favorite jogger. It's the license to train jogger. I'm kind of off like the jogger wave, but that will probably be the only jogger I'll continue to buy. Anytime I have something that's like important, a meeting or a dinner or something, like 90% of the time, I'm on the Lululemon app grabbing a few things. Like it's automatic at this point. I have yet to be let down and have never needed to return anything or wanted to return anything. But all that to say, I do wonder if Lulu will serve Minwoo pieces that like stay within their design system, or if they will explore some alternative styles that speak to the character he is. I would hope they take the same approach they did with Jordan Clarkson. I think there's a real opportunity to tell a bigger story that is just highlighting him during like tour events, similar to Jordan. Like the lifestyle aspect of the sport is becoming more of a centerpiece in terms of content. And we as fans want to know what these athletes are up to off the course. What's their real vibe like? Like, I just think there's a lot of potential to explore that with him specifically. And that somewhat leads to the second point that I had, which is the sports marketing side of things. So Lululemon a few years back had a few different category handles like Lululemon Men. They got rid of all those handles and just have their global and their like geo handles. They still do have the I think it's Lululemon Studio handle, which is just a rebrand from the Mirror, the workout company, like Mirror company they acquired a few years back. Now all that's set. Sports marketing. Lou is still predominantly female. Just scrolling through like their IG, it's probably like 70-30. Maybe like 60-40, which makes total sense for the brand. Lulu's getting in the male market. It's still very new. With all that, they do a lot and tell a lot of stories and have like a number of different global ambassadors. And they have so many different personalities on this page. Like, my goodness, they got DK Metcalf. He's an NFL athlete. Casey Neistat, big YouTuber. The whole Peloton squad's on here. Shoot, they got Snappy Gilmore on here too. Where do I actually sign up for this? They got some heavy hitters, but man, they got some crazy good engagement too. But with Minwoo, like, where does he stand in terms of priority for the brand, or is it just a trend play for them? I do know Lulu has ex Nike leadership on their brand and sports marketing's team, so we should be able to see some pretty solid execution either way. And I'm definitely going to be following along like real close. I'll be sure to post like his fairway fit too from what he has on his day one for the American Express, which starts tomorrow. And on that note, let's talk with Grayson. They're out here wiling out, I would say. More on that next. You know when you got some spicy news, so spicy, you just can't keep it in any longer, and you debate whether you should tell somebody, and you wind up holding it in for a while, and then you're vibing out, having like a good time, and it just slips out like mid conversation. I feel like Grayson just did that. Like they were out in Dubai, they were vibing out at the Dubai Invitational, and a photo was taken, and they shared that photo to Instagram. I left a comment that said, saying a lot without saying a lot. So in the photo is Mr. Charlie Schaefer, which is the founder of Grayson, who is ex Ralph Lauren, by the way, and his good buddy Rory. They both look like they're having a really good time. And this is really only a big deal because all of the recent updates with Nike Golf, like Rory signed a 10-year deal with Nike back in 2017, 2018. So technically, he would still be with Nike through until 2027, 2028. But just with everything going on, like there could be a real scenario where he does not make it through the rest of his contract. Like just before I started recording this podcast, I saw that Roger Steele, it looked like his relationship with Nike is still strong, but the actual like contract relationship is no more, which is one of many athletes and ambassadors that I've seen that have had like these appreciation messages for Nike Golf. But yeah, I mean, like Tiger is his guy, and him not rocking with Nike, in my opinion, makes that reality a little bit more convincing. But the PGA show is next week, which I won't be at this year. But I've got a number of messages that a big news is supposed to hit that week, both on the product and like athlete and brand wise. So maybe the shot on Grayson's Instagram was just a fun like foreshadow moment. Again, like the wild, wild west is continuing at a rapid pace, and it's making for some really interesting narratives. And what's crazy about all of this, like, could you imagine the TGL also being played right now? I think this would have been week two, if I have my days right. The TGL was supposed to debut. It was like January 9th, I want to say. Um, and you know what? I wonder if that also had a little bit to do with Tiger dipping from Nike. Like, I wonder if Tiger, approached Nike about being the official sponsor of the league, and Nike either said no or wasn't interested just because they knew what was on the horizon. I haven't heard that from anyone, but man, that would be really interesting to know if that was the case or not. It would somewhat make sense with just like all the teams and the merch felt super chaotic, as if like there was this assumption that all the teams would be rocking with Nike, kind of similar how like Live is set up where everybody has matching polos. But it seemed like everybody was kind of scrambling to do everything themselves, which is kind of wild. But what a conspiracy theory, huh? But yeah, Rory to Grayson. Maybe not. Maybe. I don't know. Time will tell. Well, yeah, let's wrap up on this last segment of the day. A brand I think could really become a big player in the space, and that's Wilson. Recording this episode super late at night, but I've been thinking about this for a minute now. But I think Wilson Golf, to me, is sitting on a gold mine. I posted a few weeks back. I thought Wilson could really be the dark horse this year in terms of being a brand people really like to rock with. Wilson has been around for literally more than 100 years. Like, that's such a wild stat line, and a cool little flex. I think from like a sports equipment landscape, they seem to really understand where they stand. But in terms of serving like the golfer specifically from an apparel aspect, I think they could do some really dope, like new gen vintage vibes. There's a brand called Ebbets Field Flannels that focuses on like, they call it this historic athletic fashion. They have a crazy lineup of fashion pieces that are like reworked old baseball teams, and they got like dope jackets and jerseys and hats. I want to say Lids too actually acquired them not too long ago, but I think if you could make a real case that Wilson could reach back into the archives of the brand across all of its categories, football, basketball, tennis, and whatnot, and bring to life like their version of the historic Wilson fashion. Just the fact that they've been around for 100 years gives you a gnarly amount of stories to build around. And I think pairing that with the latest great tech from like a sports equipment perspective could make for a really unique position in the market. And I doubt that Wilson stands on being like the most innovative in terms of apparel. Like, you could make the argument for the sports equipment though. But yeah, like the idea of digging into what a new age like retro vibe could be a nice little like unlock for the brand. Like, I'd love to take a look at their archives and get an idea of what they could build around and build from. The Wilson American hoodie, like as an example, is such a dope classic like timeless look. I just know that if done right, it would be a hit from a golf perspective. And then you could find moments to collab with brands that make sense, like what they did with Kith in Wilson Tennis. Like, that stuff was really well done. Like, imagine a Metalwood Wilson story. Like, the pieces are all right there, just the right move needs to be made, just like scrolling through their Instagram handle. Like, I understand it's not the full story, but it's at least a snapshot of the brand, and all you get is just like club and ball shots. Like, there's no emotion behind any of that. There's like a tech story that's being told. But I get it. I mean, like, logistically, Wilson is owned by Amer Sports, and I've been in those situations where it is a constant uphill battle to exercise like new direction and new ethos, new mission, vision of like what you're trying to encapsulate in a sport. A really unique opportunity, I would imagine, would be a hit. And yeah, I mean, I'll leave it at that. Like, lock that in. I think Wilson is definitely my 2024 like biggest opportunity brand. I think that's like a good spot to wrap for the week. It's mad late where I'm at right now. But I think the next few pods are going to be more focused on actual products and bringing on a few folks I think have really unique perspective within the space, and stories I think will leave y'all in awe. So definitely subscribe if you haven't already, and share with a friend. But we'll see you all in next week's episode. Deuces.